The forgotten warning, the discovery. The Krillian music, Dominion had ruled the eastern spiral arm for 300 years. Without challenge, their war fleets, numbered in the thousands, their weapons, could crack planets in their empire, stretched across 40 star systems. Admiral Vexor stood on the command deck of the Eternal Triumph, watching his scanner crews work through another routine patrol near the Edge Nebula. This sector was considered dead space, region where no civilization had ever thrived, where even asteroids seemed to avoid drifting. The crew called it the Silent Zone, though officially it carried the designation Sector 9. Vexor adjusted his ceremonial armor, heavy with metals from campaigns against smaller species who refused to join the Dominion peacefully. He was preparing to order the fleet back to core territory when a junior technician raised one of her forearms in alarm. The scanner display showed something impossible. An energy signature had appeared exactly 3,000 km ahead, but the signature itself was wrong. It did not match any known power source in the galactic database. The energy readings flickered between existence and non-existence, as if reality itself could not decide whether the object was actually there. The ancient warning, the science officer approached with visible concern. According to his research, ancient star charts from nearly 4 centuries ago marked this exact location with a symbol that translated roughly to forbidden or keep away. Those charts came from the early days of galactic exploration, when dozens of young civilizations were mapping space for the first time. Most of those early explorers were now extinct or had joined larger empires. Their warnings were considered primitive superstition by modern standards. Vexor dismissed the concern with a wave. Ancient civilizations feared what they could not understand, and he said the Krillian Dominion feared nothing. He ordered 3 scout ships to investigate the energy signature, confident that whatever caused the readings would be easily explained. Perhaps it was a natural phenomenon, perhaps an old satellite from a forgotten species, perhaps nothing at all. The scouts moved forward, their pilots joking over the communication channels about ghost stories and ancient curses. The revelation space itself began to change. The darkness ahead started rippling like water disturbed by something rising from the depths. The energy signature grew stronger, more stable, more real. Then, without warning or ceremony, a ship appeared. It did not fly into view. It did not emerge from faster than light travel. It simply stopped hiding. The vessel was enormous, easily 5 times larger than the Eternal Triumph, yet the scanners had detected nothing until it chose to reveal itself. The hull was smooth and dark, built from materials the Krillian database could not identify. The ship's surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making it difficult to judge its exact dimensions. Blue lines ran across the exterior in patterns that looked almost organic, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. No weapons were visible, no shield generators, no engine ports. The ship simply existed in defiance of everything the Krillians understood about spacecraft design. The 3 scout ships immediately attempted to scan the vessel. Their instruments returned only errors and corrupted data. One pilot reported that his targeting system was trying to lock onto empty space 3 km behind where the ship actually sat. Another said her navigation computer insisted the massive vessel did not exist at all. The third scout simply went silent, its communication systems failing without explanation. The message. Admiral Vexer felt something he had not experienced in decades, uncertainty. He ordered his communication officer to hail the mysterious ship on all standard frequencies. Minutes passed with no response. The massive vessel hung in space like a monument, silent and patient. Then, just as Vexer was about to order, a warning shot fired across its bow. Every screen in the entire Krillian fleet activated simultaneously. No one had accepted a transmission. No one had opened a channel. The screens simply turned on by themselves, controlled by an intelligence that existed outside their systems. A symbol appeared first, angular and precise, unlike any language in the modern galaxy. The symbol hung on the screens for exactly 10 seconds before fading. Then words appeared, translated perfectly into Krillian script, even though the language had only been standardized within the last century. The message was brief: you have entered the garden. The gardeners have returned. Confusion spread through the fleet. Officers checked their databases for any reference to gardeners or gardens in this sector. They found nothing. The message seemed deliberately cryptic, designed to unsettle rather than inform. Vexer demanded his intelligence officers explain what the message meant, but none of them had answer. The galaxy's historical records showed no trace of any civilization calling themselves gardeners. The recognition. Then the oldest member of Vexer's crew, a historian who specialized in predominian conflicts, made a sound of horror. He pulled up files so ancient they existed only as text with no visual records remaining. The files described a species that had voluntarily left the galaxy nearly 400 years ago after a brief but devastating war with a coalition of younger races. That species had made a promise before departing: they would return if their boundaries were violated. The historian's voice shook as he read the species name from the ancient files. Humans. The word meant nothing to most of the crew. Humanity was considered extinct or mythical, their civilization reduced to scattered legends and half-remembered warnings. But the old files were clear: humans had not been defeated. They had chosen to leave to tend what they called their garden in isolation, and they had marked their territory with a single demand: stay away. Admiral Vexer stared at the massive ship on his viewscreen. The Krillian Dominion had just violated a 400-year-old treaty with a species they believed no longer existed, and that species had been watching, waiting, and preparing for this exact moment. The ship before them was not a greeting, it was a response, and somewhere in the depths of space, more ships like it were undoubtedly awakening. The silent zone had earned its name for a reason, and now the silence was ending. The price of arrogance. The truth unveiled. The human ship remained motionless while Admiral Vexer tried to regain control of his fleet. His communication systems were compromised. His scanners provided useless data, and his crew looked to him for orders he did not know how to give. The massive vessel had done nothing overtly hostile, yet its mere presence felt like a threat. Then the screens activated again, and this time a face appeared, a human face. The woman looked neither young nor old, her features sharp and weathered like someone who had lived through difficult years. Her hair was cut short and gray, and her uniform was simple black with no decorations, except a single silver emblem on her collar. The emblem showed a tree with roots spreading in all directions, the same symbol that had appeared moments earlier. She studied the Krillian fleet through the screen as if counting each ship individually, memorizing every detail. "I am Ambassador Chin," she said. Her voice was calm but carried an undertone of disappointment, like a teacher addressing students who had broken a simple rule. "You have entered protected space. This sector was marked as forbidden territory by treaty signed 4 centuries ago. The treaty remains in effect. You are in violation." Vexor found his voice, though it came out harsher than he intended. "Your species abandoned this region." Abandoned territory becomes open territory under galactic law. The Krillian Dominion recognizes no treaty signed before our empire existed. Ambassador Chin tilted her head slightly. "You recognize no treaty because you were not yet powerful enough to be included in the original negotiations. That does not invalidate the agreement. This sector and 17 others like it were designated as humanity's garden. We left the galaxy to tend it in peace. The terms were clear. Any species entering these zones would be considered hostile. The witnesses, a holographic display materialized in the space between the human ship and the Krillian fleet. The display showed something that made Vexor's blood turn cold. It was a map, but not of this sector. It showed the entire Krillian Dominion, every star system, every colony world, every military installation. The map was updated in real time, showing ship movements and resource flows that should have been classified military secrets. Dates appeared next to various locations, some going back centuries. "We never left," Ambassador Chin continued. "We simply stopped making ourselves known. Our observer stations have recorded every major event in this spiral arm since our departure. The rise of the Krillian Dominion, your conquest of the Velner home world, your forced assimilation of the Tor colonies, your mining operations in the Kelver asteroid fields. We watched it all." Historian in Vexor's crew was frantically searching through old records. He pulled up a file and his face went pale. "Admiral," he whispered, "the Velner War, it happened 73 years ago, but this file, it shows a human observation post was active in that system. They documented our tactics, our weapons, our command structure, everything." Other officers were finding similar records embedded in their own databases, records they had never noticed before, hidden files that had been sitting in Krillian systems for decades, watching and recording. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just been monitoring the Dominion from a distance, they had infiltrated Krillian networks at the deepest levels, leaving archives of evidence that could be revealed at any moment. The choice. Ambassador Chin expanded the holographic display. Now it showed not just the Krillian Dominion, but dozens of other civilizations throughout the galaxy. Each one had small markers indicating human observation posts, some active for hundreds of years. The younger races of the galaxy had built their empires, thinking they were alone, competing with each other for territory and resources. They never realized they were being studied by a civilization that had chosen to step back and watch. 400 years ago we made a decision, Chin explained. We had the power to dominate this galaxy. Our technology was beyond what Others possessed, our weapons were unmatched, but power without wisdom leads only to destruction, so we withdrew. We kept our garden sectors as laboratories, as places to develop and grow without interference, and we watched the younger races to see if they would learn what we had learned, that true strength comes from restraint, not conquest. Vexor wanted to argue to defend his empire's expansion as necessary for security and prosperity, but the evidence floating before him made any argument meaningless. The Krillian dominion had built itself through force, believing it was powerful, but humanity had simply been patient, allowing the younger races to exhaust themselves in conflicts while human technology advanced in isolation. You have violated our borders, Ambassador Qin said. According to the original treaty, we are permitted to respond with force. We could disable your fleet permanently. We could erase your presence from these systems. We could make the Krillian dominion historical. Footnote. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. But that would make us no different from you. The lesson. The ambassador's expression softened slightly. Instead, we offer you the same choice we offered ourselves 4 centuries ago. You can continue your path of expansion, believing that power comes from controlling others. If you make that choice, we will respond accordingly, and your empire will learn the consequences of challenging a civilization that has spent 400 years preparing for this moment, or you can choose differently. New display appeared, showing historical records from humanity's own past, wars fought over resources and ideology, planets devastated by weapons. Humanity had since dismantled, civilizations crushed under human expansion. Before the Great Withdrawal, the records were honest and unflinching, showing humanity's own mistakes. We withdrew because we recognized what we were becoming, Shin said quietly. We saw the pattern: power, expansion, conflict, destruction, so we broke the cycle. We kept only what we needed, and we left the rest of the galaxy alone. Now we tend our gardens, and we watch to see if others will learn the same lesson. Admiral Vexor stared at the display surrounding his fleet. His empire suddenly seemed small and fragile, built on foundations that could be dismantled by a species he had thought extinct. Every strategic plan, every military advantage, every secret the Dominion possessed was already known to the humans. The Krillians had never been in control. They had simply been allowed to believe they were. We are leaving this sector, Vexor said finally. His voice carried none of its earlier confidence. We will not return, Ambassador Qin nodded slowly. Your fleet will be escorted to the border. The treaty boundaries will be updated in your navigation databases. Share them with other civilizations. Tell them the gardeners have returned and the garden is closed. Perhaps some will understand what that means before they make the same mistake you did. The departure. The massive human ship began moving, not toward the Krillian fleet, but alongside it, guiding it back toward recognized space. As the vessels traveled together, Vexor watched his scanner crews work. They were finally getting partial readings on the human ship's capabilities, and what they saw was terrifying. The vessel's power output alone exceeded the combined energy generation of the entire Krillian home system. Its shields, when they briefly activated during a course correction, registered as solid matter on sensors. This was not a warship, This was an observer, a vessel designed simply to watch and report, and it was still beyond anything the Dominion could challenge. The journey to the border took 6 hours. Not once did the human ship make a threatening move. It simply accompanied the Krillian fleet, patient and inevitable as gravity itself. When they finally reached the edge of the forbidden zone, Ambassador Chen's face appeared on the screens one final time. "Go home, Admiral Vexer," she said. "Tell your leaders what you found here. Tell them the universe is larger than they imagined, and that power is not the same as strength. Tell them the gardeners are watching, and perhaps in time your people will understand why we chose to leave rather than rule." The transmission ended. The human ship remained at the border, stationary and silent. Once more, Admiral Vexer ordered his fleet to return to Krillian space at maximum speed. Behind them, the massive vessel began fading from view, returning to its hidden state. Within minutes it had disappeared completely, as if it had never existed at all. But every member of Vexer's crew knew the truth. The ship was still there, watching, waiting, tending the garden that humanity had planted 400 years ago. And across the stars, other civilizations would soon learn the same lesson the Krillians had learned today. Some boundaries exist for everyone's protection, and some powers are best left undisturbed.